get started in our conversation on CARICOM. As always, we sit with Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comissiong. Ambassador, good morning to you.
Morning, Pearson.
Welcome back.
It's always good to be home.
It always feels like forever before you return.
CBC Studio is home as well.
I'm happy to have you home. Welcome home. Have a glass of water on us. So here we are now. We're back from the 49th regular meeting of the CARICOM Heads of Government, at which there are some groundbreaking decisions made and announcements made as well. One of which is the opportunity now for CARICOM nationals to move around freely.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, that was the single most important and historic accomplishment of that Heads of Government conference in Montego Bay. And we really need to reflect on it because this has been a long time coming. You know, Montego Bay is a historic town in our Caribbean community. It was there in 1947 that Grantley Adams, Norman Manley, Albert Gomes, all the great leaders gathered to meet with the British colonial authorities to agree on a West Indian Federation. So that was where that decision was fundamentally taken. And of course, we then had the Federation, 1958, 1962, Jamaica pulled out, Trinidad pulled out, it collapsed. And one of the reasons that Jamaica pulled out, you know, there are many reasons, but one of them was this issue of free movement. This almost irrational fear of, back then, it was Jamaica, which was the then leading economy, fearing that these people from the small islands of the Eastern Caribbean would invade Jamaica. And that was one of the things that led to the collapse. So ever since the collapse of the Federation in 1962, we have been trying to work our way back to unity, to that integrated Caribbean. Of course, we went the route of CARIFTA, the Free Trade Area, that evolved into CARICOM. But all along, the idea of free movement of our people eluded us. Finally, when we decided, look, CARICOM had to go beyond just a common market, and it had to be a single market and single economy, then free movement became a necessity.
Right.
And in fact, this is the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, right? This. You know, we had the original treaty in 1973, and then we made about 9 major amendments, and we brought all those amendments together and produced the revised treaty. And in the revised treaty, the original treaty did not speak about freedom of movement because there was all this fear. But by the time we did the revised treaty, we did an Article 45, which said, and I quote, "Member states commit themselves to the goal of free movement of their nationals within the community." The goal.
Yes.
So ever since this revised treaty was produced, we have been trying to see how we can move from simply committing to the goal to committing to the actual free movement. And I must tell you, Pearson, the achievement that we made in Montego Bay last week, the background to it was that there was an intergovernmental task force that I had the honor to chair, that we did the technical work to produce the text that would outline what free movement would look like.
Right.
And we were able in Montego Bay to rely on that text and to produce that decision. And the reason why, and I must say, that the decision that was made in Montego Bay last week is not for all CARICOM member states to do the free movement. Because some states said, we are ready. Some states said, we need a little more time. And the 4 states that said, we are ready now are Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, in the past, it would have been impossible for 4 to go ahead, because in the past we had this rule that you had to make unanimous decisions. So everybody, if we wanted to do something, everybody had to be willing to go or nobody could go. But we had a good sense about 3 years ago to say, look, this is holding back progress. So we did something called the Protocol for Enhanced Cooperation, which says that if a minimum of 3 member states want to do something that is in keeping with the treaty and the others are not ready, that that a minimum of 3, they can be given permission from the entire body to go ahead, with the understanding that when the others are ready, they will join in. So that's what happened last week. These 4 applied to the entire body for permission for the 4 of us to go ahead and, in a sense, lead the way. And it's a historic decision, Pearson. It's history that we made, and it's going to be very exciting. Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent.
You said you crafted a paper that would show how free movement would look. And so talk to us a little bit about what it could look like when we talk about free movement.
Yes, this was what we did. The technical work that the Intergovernmental Task Force did to produce a new Article 45. That the original Article 45 said we commit to the goal. The new Article 45 said we are going to do it. And this outlines how it's to be done. So basically the idea is this, that the citizens of these 4 countries, and it will only apply to the citizens of these 4 countries. We have said we will permit the citizens of the participating countries to be able to travel to enter, to live, to work in any of those 4 countries without the need for any work permit, without the need for any entry permit. However, the treaty does provide certain precautions, because the treaty says, yes, you know, we are giving citizens the right to move. However, there are certain precautions. For example, Article 226, nothing in this chapter shall be construed as preventing the adoption or enforcement by any member state of measures to protect public morals or to maintain public order and safety. So for example, so a state would be entitled, if a person is a national security threat, if a person is a criminal, you're entitled to say, nope, no, we're not allowing you in because you are a threat. You will be a threat to the safety. If, the community law also says that a state will be entitled to refuse entry if a person is likely to become a charge on the public purse. In other words, it's likely to become a welfare case.
Right.
So, although it is free movement, there are certain safeguards. You can keep out the criminals. You can keep out anybody who clearly is not going to be coming to add
any value
to your society, but to be a drain on the society. So you can keep out those persons, and if they do come in, a person comes in, breaks the law, you can put them out. You can deny them that right. But the regime is really for constructive citizens who want to move for good purposes, who want to come and be part of a new society and to make a contribution. And the regime also says that when they come, they're going to have certain basic rights, okay? And the basic rights are these. If a person comes, he moves, he's living, he's working among us, we will give him the same right to primary education, secondary education that we give to our own citizens.
Right.
So whatever we give to our citizens, they will get to. Similarly, emergency health care, primary health care, whatever services we give to our citizens, we will give to them too. So those are the basic rights.
There's some people who would ask, but at whose cost? Who pays for that?
just like any Barbadian citizen. And likewise, when Barbadians go to those countries, they would have the same right as the citizens of those countries. So, you know, we in Barbados, this new regime may help us with a very troubling problem that we have in Barbados. One of the big problems we have in Barbados is that we have the demographic profile of a developed country. That is, we have an increasingly aging population. We have Barbadians are producing less children. So in fact, we have not been naturally by childbirth reproducing our population, keeping our population growing since 1980. Were it not for some incoming migration into Barbados, our population would really have been on the decline because we're having less, Barbadians are having less children, right? So we have this problem where, you know, when the Motley administration came in 2018, they did a demographic analysis of the Barbadian population, and that analysis showed that ideally we probably need another 80 to 100,000 people to make our economy function at its maximal. So Barbados really needs an infusion of young or relatively young, economically active people. People who will come, people who will become part of the workforce, they will work, they will pay their taxes, they will pay into the national insurance scheme, and by so doing, they will provide the buffer for that aging population. So this may, I'm not saying that this will solve that problem, but this will probably, this is likely to help, you know, to some extent.
We're talking here about the free movement that 4 Caribbean states will be having of nationals between themselves: Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so naturally, conversation has already begun in each area about some concerns that they may have. And so I want to be able to put to you, Ambassador, some of those concerns. The impact of the influx of people from elsewhere on our social services here. How do you see this free movement either impacting negatively, or what do you see to be some of the, is that a real rational fear to have?
Well, first of all, I don't, this new regime is, I don't think this new regime is going to precipitate any flood of incoming migrants. And I say that because we have the example of the Skills National Program, which we have been operating now for 20 years. And we have 12 skills, you know. So it's a wide range of skills, and we have never seen any deluge, any flood of people either coming in or Bajans going out. So I don't expect that to change. So I think we will see modest movement in and out, Bajans going out, persons coming in. I think it is more about breaking that. I think we have broken a psychological barrier. This freedom of movement regime that gives us the possibility, if we desire, to move freely. I think it's about breaking that psychological barrier, where we have come to a stage now where we can confidently say we don't fear our neighbors, we don't fear our kith and kin, and we can open up to them, and they can open up to us. But I don't think there's going to be any great flood. The other thing is this. So when we look at Barbados, if we take the case of Barbados, let's look at our capacity. So the question would be, do we have capacity constraints in our education system and in our health system? Because these are the 2 areas in which people will get rights. If you look at our education system, as I indicated, we have not been reproducing our population since 1980. So we have been having less children. So in fact, if you look at the numbers, there are significantly less students in our primary and secondary school system than say 20 or 30 years ago. We were producing more children back then. So we have the same number of schools, maybe even more. We have the same complement of teachers, but yet we have lesser quantity of students. So I don't think there's any real capacity constraint where the education system is concerned. Health system, well, you know, Barbados is blessed with a beautiful network of polyclinics. Yeah. We have this wonderful Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which is within the Eastern Caribbean, the most sophisticated and comprehensive general hospital. So I can't swear about the capacity of the health system. The education system, I think, is clearer, but I would be confident in saying that the Barbados health system would be more than capable of managing what I expect to be the modest numbers that will be coming in. Oh, and I need to make this point as well. Yes, you know, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas always has safeguards built in. So Article 47, I'll just quote Article 47. Where the exercise of rights granted under this chapter creates serious difficulties in any sector of the economy of a member state or occasions economic hardships in a region of the community, a member state adversely affected thereby may, subject to the provisions of this article, apply such restrictions on the exercise of the rights as it considers appropriate in order to resolve the difficulties or alleviate the hardships. So there are always safeguards that if something went wrong, if you began to see some negative effects, that your government will be within its right to say, hold on, we need to apply some restrictions here, you know. So yes, so Barbadians should be conscious of that. There are always safeguards built into the treaty, so that depending on what results materialize, you could make some changes, some modifications to always safeguard the home population.
And I think that could then apply to a whole host of other concerns, whether it's because of access to jobs, you know, security and the like. There are safeguards built in to the treaty that say...
I want to make this point about jobs, though, because there are a lot of people who have this idea that in a country, there's a finite number of jobs. And so and that if somebody comes in and gets a job, it means, yes, it means, but an economy doesn't work like that. You know, it's not a zero-sum game that there's in Barbados. There are 100 jobs. If somebody comes in and gets one, it means that there's one less for Barbadians. No, an economy doesn't work like that. In fact, when you get an addition, an augmentation of people working in an economy, producing, adding, helping to multiply the economic activities, what you will find is that through that process you will create additional jobs. And this is why we say it will be helpful to Barbados if we have some infusion of relatively young, economically active people working and adding to our workforce and adding to the whole complex of production and economic activities of our society.
So here we are, Barbados, Belize, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica. It's interesting, the combination, one, and it's interesting the relationship. What do you see this means for the four of us, really, to charge forward together, to really start free movement of CARICOM nationals?
Yes, well, you know, I just love the idea that by virtue of this regime, and it's going to come into effect on the 1st of October, 1st of October. I just love the idea that we now have, in the entire world community, we now have some special brothers and sisters, some kith and kin. Because with these three countries now, Barbados, we are now going to have the closest and most intimate relationship we have. You know, with all of the countries of the world. These three are going to be really special to us, because it is only these three countries whose citizens will have the right to freely enter and live among us and work among us. And similarly, we will be treated that way with these three countries. So it's going to create a very special relationship between the four of us. And what makes it doubly significant is that, you know, Barbados is the eastern border of CARICOM. We are the easternmost state. Belize is the western border of CARICOM. They're the westernmost state. And then we have, you know, in the middle,
between
St. Vincent and Dominica. And of course, we Barbadians, we have had a long-standing relationship with St. Vincent and Dominica. Many Vincies and Dominicans who live here. And likewise, Bajans have gone out to St. Vincent and Dominica. Belize is going to be the new factor. Belize on the Central American mainland. New to us. Many Barbadians probably don't know a lot about Belize. By our standards, it's a massive country. Belize is some 52 times the size of Barbados. Very diverse country, a country with Mayan ruins, you know, a Mayan ancestry, Garifuna people, and the Garifuna, the so-called Black Caribs that many people don't know, have their origin in Barbados. Enslaved Africans escaped the plantations in Barbados, headed to St. Vincent on a little raft, a little boat. In St. Vincent, mingled with the Kalinago, the so-called yellow Carib, produced the Black Carib. The British ultimately deported those people to Belize. So we actually have an ancestral connection with through the Garifuna people, Barbados, St. Vincent, Belize. And of course, the Dominica was a center of the Kalinago people. So, I mean, there are connections, historical connections that many of us are probably not even aware of. But the point about Belize, Belize has tremendous possibilities. And, you know, a couple of years ago I was in Belize, and I noticed many Chinese expatriate business people going to Belize, taking advantage of economic activity, setting up businesses. And it occurred to me that young, enterprising Barbadians could very well find Belize, you know, a fertile field for their life opportunities, career opportunities. So I look forward to Barbadians getting to know Belize, exploring Belize, looking for economic opportunities, and likewise I look forward to our Belizean brothers and sisters coming here and becoming part of our society, just like Vincies and Dominicans have been part of our society for many, many years now.
Between now and October 1st, what needs to happen so that on October 1st, we're all together on this?
Well, what needs to happen is that all of the relevant government agencies, immigration, police, the Labor Department, National Insurance, we have to, and we have to do all that is required to make this be implemented seamlessly. But this is not new to us. I mean, we have been having consultations, we've been meeting through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through my own division within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the CARICOM division, through the Prime Minister's office, through our focal point, CSME focal point. We have been very proactive, and we have been meeting with the relevant government departments. The Solicitor General's office, Attorney General's office, they have already identified the regulations and the pieces of legislation that will have to be amended. Sometimes the legislative process can take some time, but you are still able to implement things through administrative practices. So even while you're working on doing the formal legislation, the government, the relevant government agencies can put administrative procedures in place to facilitate whatever needs to be facilitated. So we think we have it covered. We don't really foresee any difficulties implementing on the 1st of October. And this is why we went ahead. And this is why the other three went ahead. There are some other CARICOM countries that said that they too, they're committed and they are ready to go, but they are not quite ready to go as early as 1st October. So we would expect that, let's say, over the next year or so, some others will want to join us. But we want these four to set a very good example, to do it well, and to show that this freedom of movement regime will be a positive, a win-win situation, a positive benefit for the participating countries and for, in fact, our entire Caribbean community.
Clearly a conversation to be continued. And so, Ambassador Comissiong, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Pierce.
Always.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.